Omar, how are you?
Hey, doing good. Exciting news about the Model 3 long range qualifying for the tax credit again.
Yeah, that's big news. That just came out
Yeah.
in a couple hours ago, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal. If you're buying the car, you can get the credit point of sale now, which is, even better than last year. So it's a really great car. I'm loving my performance. I think a lot of people are going to be really happy about this as we come into the end of the quarter here.
Yeah, great timing because we see those Model 3 inventories rising too. So this works actually perfectly. Is this retroactive?
You mean, can someone who. Hello?
Yeah, I just lost you. Are you back?
Yeah, sorry, I got a call. Do you mean, did someone who bought a Model 3 long range earlier in the year, are they gonna be able to get
Right,
it?
right.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but, if the qualification is for the entire year, then in theory, you could claim it on your tax return if you qualify and get 7,500 off your taxes, but don't quote me on that. Haven't confirmed 100% whether it applies from the start of the year or just from today.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who just joined, um, the Model 3 now gets the $7,500 tax credit. And if anyone has information on whether that is retroactive, please request to speak and let us know. Here we go. At the top of your screens is the post by Tesla. The Model 3 now qualifies for the full $7,500 tax credit in the US. Starts at 34,990 when also factoring the estimated 5-year gas savings. I've been surprised by how little these tax credits have impacted sales. Then, like the rear-wheel drive qualifies for it already, and we haven't really seen a surge in rear-wheel drive sales.
You mean the performance or the rear wheel drive is the only one now that doesn't qualify for it, but the performance and long range do.
Oh, okay. I was just kind of making a general note. Um, the
Yeah, I mean,
Model
I
Y
don't think people
qualifies.
really know about this tax credit. If you polled people and you said, "Hey, did you know you can get $7,500 off at the point of sale when you buy an electric car?" Most people probably have no idea. If they did, they would probably run and claim this point of sale credit as fast as they can before the election in November.
Yeah, I think we might see a surge towards the end of the year before the election, like you said, because Trump made it clear he's going to get rid of these, right?
Yeah, that's what he wants to do.
So I guess it's not the worst thing in the world if people rush to buy at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you qualify for the EV tax credit and it's there, then it's a great thing. But also, it has distorted the market in a lot of ways. For example, the Model 3 long range not qualifying before. Who knows what changes they had to make to get it to pass. So, if they get rid of it, I think it might make things better in some ways. If they keep it, it does obviously improve affordability. I mean, a long range Model 3 for around $40,000. That's a pretty incredible deal.
All right. We have a pretty good group today in the listener mode, but you guys are welcome to come up to request to speak. Omar, what else is on your radar today?
Oh, nothing much, just really enjoying the hands free FSD. We haven't seen it go out to any more people, but the update seems to be doing really well. And I'm hoping that we see an 11.4.2 and a wider release any moment now.
Yeah. Um, what do you think of this Lucid CEO's comment that Lucid is years ahead of Tesla in terms of core technology and that they've reached 5 miles per kilowatt hour and no one else is even close, he says? Any thoughts on that?
Well, Lucid's products suck, and they are not selling. So great job. Pat yourself on the back. You did it, right? I mean, you know, the key isn't really just saying, okay, we've got a super efficient motor, or their drivetrain is very good. But you look at Rivian, for example. Rivian's had much more success in the market, and they just started off buying Bosch motors. Now they've actually gone and done their own enduro motors, but they started off just really buying motors off the shelf, and they had much more success in the market. So ultimately, I think what the consumer cares about is multifaceted. It's more complicated than that. Yes, Lucid's battery and drivetrain is very good. I mean, I think Tesla is better in many ways than they are, but they've produced this drivetrain that was really so expensive and so complicated to manufacture that it's priced their product at a range where most consumers can't access it. So, I mean, he's marketing his company. This isn't really news to me. Every company is going to say we've got the best um, product, but the sales numbers tell a different story. And consumers are picking different products. They're picking Teslas, they're picking Rivians, they're picking other EVs over Lucid because the overall product is better. And in particular, when you look at Tesla, you look at FSD, you look at the supercharger network, the experience of getting around in a Tesla is much better because of some of the technology they have that's much further ahead. So good for Peter, um, highest paid CEO in the auto industry. Got to give himself a pat on the back. Talk his own book a little bit, but it's hard to really take the comments that seriously when you look at their sales.
Do you think they're going to end up selling that core technology, the motors, to others?
They've already done a deal with Aston Martin. If I were running this business, um, I would just sort of, and if I was running the business as a profit focused investor, I would completely shut down the auto division. I would sell the entire factory in Casa Grande, Arizona. I'd sell the entire factory in Saudi Arabia, and I'd just focus on the battery and drivetrain business. And I think that could be huge for them. But they have a little more, what do you call it? Like ego, or like there's something a little sexy or special about making your own car, and I think Rawlinson really wants to do that. And as for the Saudi PIF, I'm not really sure what their intentions are. I mean, I think if the company was successful in making a lot of money, that would probably make them happy, but they probably also don't want to disrupt their golden goose by, um, really accelerating the transition and having Lucid become a supplier, which is what they actually originally were. Lucid started out actually as a battery and drivetrain supplier for Formula E racing, and then they became a car company. But yeah, so I mean, it probably would make sense for them to do that, but that's not the strategy they're pursuing. It would be much easier for them to be profitable with that kind of business than, trying to start up a car brand, which has been something that even Rawlinson has admitted they've had demand issues.
Yeah. Luke, go ahead.
Can you hear me? I had a question for you guys. It's about robo taxis. How do you think the charging for it is going to work? Not as in monetary, but the actual physical charging of the cars on a daily basis.
Well, the charging's the easy part, so if you look at how Waymo has this set up today, they have what's called Waymo depots. And at the Waymo depots, they have a lot of fast chargers. So the Waymo comes in, someone plugs it in, they do whatever service, they clean the car, and then they send it back out there. So Tesla obviously has a supercharging network. This is going to be a huge asset in figuring out how to charge all these cars. And, the continued build out of the network is going to be a huge asset. The simplest way to plug in an autonomous car is just to pay a human to plug it in, right? So, $15 an hour, boom, now this supercharger station is self-driving ready. Someone comes in, you could plug it in. You could maybe also like shout out over the speaker, like, hey, could someone plug me in? But that seems kind of more, you know, uh, a little sillier. But then, of course, there's automated solutions, like, for example, wireless charging. And wireless charging seen a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem with EVs. The EV makers don't want to put the extra hardware on the car because there's no chargers. And the charger makers don't want to build any chargers because there's no hardware on the EVs. So I think something needs to be done to break this chicken and egg cycle. And I think Tesla's going to do it because they're going to put up some wireless charging hardware. And I think they've already started preparing their cars. As a matter of fact, some people who are looking at the Cybertruck already saw some ports on the bottom for a wireless charging pad to be added. So I think they're preparing that for wireless charging. I think wireless charging is a great solution for autonomous cars. You pull into your garage, your car lines up over the pad. And by the way, that's one of the most annoying things about wireless charging is you have to line up exactly right on the pad. But with something like Auto Park, maybe it could actually do that for you and line itself up perfectly. And then it just pulls into your garage and charges whenever it needs to. You don't need to worry about it. And I've heard that they've actually gotten these, or at least the companies claim that they've gotten the efficiency pretty good. You're not losing as much energy as you would expect. So they claim. I haven't tested it. And then, of course, the third solution is just have Optimus plug it in. If you actually get that up and running and working, it sounds like they got a couple of them in the factories. Maybe by next year or 2 years from now, we'll be at a place where Optimus could be at a supercharger station and plug in a car that shows up. So that's probably how it'll work. Those are kind of the three key pillars of a solution. One, just have a human plug it in. Two, wireless charging. And three, have Optimus plug it in.
Jimmy, welcome.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Nope, just here to answer questions on geopolitics and Tesla.
What do you think about this Peter Rawlinson comment that they reach 5 miles per kilowatt hour and that Tesla's and they are years ahead of Tesla in core technology?
No comment.
Okay. Elon just tweeted and says Tesla megapacks massively increase electric power generation efficiency as they can buffer power at night for use in the day, dramatically reducing the need to build new power plants. It also allows for least efficient power plants to be shut down. Okay. Eduardo Rodriguez said in the replies to the space, I highly encourage people to reply to the space with comments and questions, and then reply to each other. If you see a question that you can answer, and you're confident that you can answer correctly. Eduardo says, not true, referring to Peter Rollins's comments. Not true. Check latest range test video from Carwow. New Model 3 was the only car in that bunch to reach 5 miles per kilowatt hour. Okay. Thank you, Eduardo.
Yeah, true.
Okay. Alexander?
Hello, guys. Omar, I have a question for you. Now, when FSD is hands-free, what if like something happens? Because now the reaction time is longer. So is Tesla like semi-responsible now?
Is Tesla responsible? I mean, no. I mean, the driver's responsible. So even though they're not nagging you, they still recommend you keep your hands on the wheel, but they're just not going to bother you about it. So, as always, the driver is responsible for preventing a crash. And I'm strongly in favor of maintaining this situation for a long time, longer than is needed. Because if you tell people that you're going to take the liability, they're going to stop paying attention. And then someone might get hit by a car because, oh, well, it's not my problem. Well, it is the problem of the people around you. So until it's just way, way, way several times better than human, keep the human level liability. And most times, it probably won't matter. But having that human responsible is something that we need right now. And at the right time when it's just actually at a point where the human's adding more error than actually solving things. That is to say, the human supervisor is actually causing more crashes than they're preventing. Then at that point, you just shift liability straight to Tesla and the human driver can sit in the back.
Okay. Have you seen any like like jerking of the wheel in this version?
What does that mean? Jerking of the wheel.
Yeah, I mean the wheel jerking when the steering wheel is like jerking like in previous versions sometimes.
I'm not sure what you mean. Like it's just moving suddenly, or I mean, it just drives very smoothly.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think that was more of a V11 kind of thing. I don't think V12 has had that problem in any of the versions.
You just get in the car, you say, I want to go here. You push the button, it takes you there. It gets in the parking lot. You turn on auto park, it parks. You get out of the car. And there's no scary moment. It just drives you there. And it just does it like a human. More human like than Waymo. So, we're we're getting to the point where there's just fewer and fewer asterisks, right? Full self-driving asterisk, you have to watch, you have to be ready to take over, it might try and crash into things, so on and so forth. Over time, more and more of those qualifiers are disappearing, and it's just becoming more and more like a robotaxi. You get in, you say where you want to go, you push the button, it takes you there hands-free. So I can't wait for this thing to get out to people. It is really something I think that's going to live up to the hype.
All right. I asked folks earlier today, what would you like to know about the company? This is at the top of their screens. And they replied with a bunch of questions. So maybe we can go through these questions if nobody has anything to say here in the listener mode. Alphabet asks, now that the vote has passed, everyone is looking for what will turn the earnings declines around. Do you think the margins bottomed in Q1? Omar, what do you think?
Do I think margins bottomed in Q1?
Alphabet says deliveries are going to be higher from Q1 to Q2. He estimates 30,000 higher. He says FSD revenue, FSD driving advancements, new pricing strategy, new markets pending. ASPs should be higher due to Cybertruck Performance Model 3, removal of inventory discounts, and rate cuts on the horizon. COGS, material cost declines, lower delivery expenses, production line efficiency gains, decreased headcount, energy storage, significant growth reiterated at shareholder meeting. Services another growing and aging fleet, which obviously means more maintenance type of repairs. More of the vehicles out of warranty, so that could help some services margins. So everything up to this point is great in his tweets, but then he tags machine in here, so now I can't repost it. That's a big mistake. Omar?
I mean, the earnings aren't really going to be good until rates start coming down. Until then, you kind of just have an oversaturated market. It looks like we're staying higher for longer. And the dynamics of the auto market and the levels of inventory we're seeing across the industry are alarming people in the auto retail sector. And when you just have a lot of inventory and rates are high and not a lot of people are able to buy cars, inflation is still sticky in a lot of areas, then you see these dealers have to discount and give incentives and give financing deals. And that all means less money, right? So until rates start coming down, the core auto business is going to be challenged. But, really, you can't find the right answer if you ask the wrong question. I'm not, as long as Tesla's earnings stay positive, they don't start bleeding ink and heading towards insolvency, I'm not really worried because, the market is asking, okay, Tesla's now a mature company. How do they compete in a very dynamic, competitive auto market with players like the German luxury brands, China, VinFast, companies all over the place? How does Tesla compete in this very crowded, very competitive market? And what people don't understand is they're not trying to compete in the market. They're trying to flip the entire table over on the market. There isn't going to be a traditional auto market as we remember it if we move into a world where you have robot vehicles and robots going around and doing tasks for us. So, if you spend your time trying to figure out, what the future of the auto business looks like and inventory levels and discounting and rates, it I think ultimately is not going to be a great predictor medium term, whereas I mean, really 3 to 5 years. So that's really the key. When rates start coming down, the core auto earnings will improve. There'll be little things here and here. The EV tax credit for the Model 3 long range, that'll improve earnings somewhat, but we're talking about a third of the sales in the United States. Certain people qualify, so it's a marginal impact. Really, the AI is the future of the earnings growth. Everything else is just little fluctuations here and there. And I see it just continuing to be challenged. I don't think that, oh, okay, well, it's all great now. You know, everything is behind us. To the
Yeah.
contrary, the rates keep getting pushed out, right? We were supposed to have two
Yeah.
rate
It's
cuts.
crazy.
Now it's one.
No,
You
at the
know,
beginning of the year, we
yeah.
were supposed to have 7 rate cuts this
Yeah,
year.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Just, Powell is not delivering. Anyway, I agree with you. I think until the rates start becoming a little lower, the core order business will be challenged. Core order sales, let's say, because FSD take rates can increase with a really great update. But I don't know if 12.4 is going to be it. Although AI driver and a bunch of others agree, and you say that too, that the removal of steering wheel nags is a game changer. So we'll see what that means for take rate. Maybe it'll increase 5-10%. But even then, you're talking maybe a few $100 million of earnings. So I think eventually, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what that means. But there's a question that applies about FSD transfer. Have we heard anything beyond what Elon said on the shareholder meeting about FSD transfers? And then we'll go to Brandon.
No, it sounds like it's going to be maybe next quarter thing. So probably would have been better if he didn't say anything. Hopefully, it doesn't impact end of quarter sales too much for people who have FSD. But I think, yeah, it should be great for people who want to take advantage of it next quarter. And also I think there's also some Tesla specific factors here that are making the auto business kind of weak. In particular, Tesla's really going through this product transition where they have this new set of products. The new products have the ambient lights, they have the screen in the back, they have improved comfort, they have better build quality, they have all these improvements, but they're in the middle of this transition and they can't really do it as quickly as we would like, right? Ideally, you snap your fingers and okay, now it's iPhone 15, not iPhone 14. But the reality of shifting global production is much more complicated than that. And we're in this period now with Model Y where in 2023, Model Y was the majority of sales at the company, right? Most of the cars they sold were Model Y. And Model Y is kind of in this place where we're waiting for it to be updated to match the Model 3. And Elon has said, okay, well, no new Model Y until 2025. So until 2025, that product that's really the majority of your sales is going to be somewhat depressed by the Osborne effect. And that's a little bit of a challenge. We're talking about the company's bread and butter here. On the other hand, you've got the Cybertruck, which is ramping up. They're going to do non-foundation series. That should bring in some more orders for the lower priced versions. So that's all very exciting. But, we've heard from Elon that wringing the cost out of this thing has just been extremely challenging. And that, it's kind of a long road ahead on that. And he had said before, it's going to be at least 12 months before we're cash flow positive. So Cybertruck, although it's growing nicely, is probably actually a headwind to gross margins right now, as is the ramp of 4680. So those things are all hitting earnings negatively instead of positively. But the next year, we got this new Model Y, we got these new models. Cybertruck hopefully starts hitting its stride where it's profitable. 4680 gets to the point, hopefully, where it's actually cheaper than any of their other nickel-based cells. And maybe some of the stuff starts pouring down into the bottom line. But right now, in particular, the Model Y, but also the ramp of Cybertruck and 4680 are going to be headwinds on earnings
Yeah,
through the second half of this year.
Brandon.
In the short to medium term, do you think that AI will have more of a material impact to earnings or the Tesla semi-truck?
FSD. There's Tesla semi-truck is very important product, very impressive product, but without 4680 becoming in ample supply, then how are you going to ramp that product? I don't know. So I'm watching 4680 production at Giga Nevada to kind of understand semi-truck volume timeline, and that's not going to be in the next couple of years. Omar, how do you think about 4680 production now that Drew Baglina has left?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they seem to be scaling up well ahead of the Cybertruck, but is Tesla really committed to it long term? Does it make sense for them? I think it probably does. Elon mentioned just wanting to be secure in case of a national security issue. I think the tax credits make it really advantageous for them as well. So I expect them to keep pressing forward, but it was never intended to be the majority of their cell supply mix. I think it's really part of a diverse solution. So CATL, BYD, Panasonic, LG, I think those are going to continue to be their biggest suppliers for a number of years. But if you continue to ramp it up, it could be a more material part of the mix, and that would have a lot of financial benefits for the company. BYD has really succeeded because they started out as a battery manufacturer. They made batteries for cell phones, and that knowledge, the battery is really the most important part of the EV. So I think there's a lot of benefits there for them to do it, even though it's a small part of their battery mix. But they're also going to be buying 4680 cells from suppliers like Panasonic and others. Panasonic's doing a factory in Texas, for example. So who knows, what that mix looks like. It could be that they're using Panasonic 4680s for the semi, or using their own 4680s out of Nevada, or it could be that they're using 2170 cells in the semi. That's what some of the prototypes have used. So overall, I think it's a good project for them to work on. I think sort of sticking with it for the long term could prove very fruitful, especially with the supply side credits on the IRA. But it's not really going to be, even 10% of their cell supply in the coming years, I don't think, unless they ramp up much faster than I'm expecting. And it seems like dry battery electrode and some of those technologies have been really challenging to scale.
Paul Co.
Hey, Jan, can you guys hear me? Yeah, I just wanted to, Yaman?
What's your question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to comment on the FSD transfers. I was actually there in person at the shareholders meeting, and somebody from the audience asked a question about the transfers, and Elon hesitated a little bit, and somebody from the audience yelled out, "Give it another quarter, Elon," and he thought about it and he said, "Maybe another quarter." Take it for what it's worth, but that's what happened there. I'm not sure if it made
Yeah,
it to any
Omar,
of the
why
report.
do you think they're leaving it to next quarter? Why not just implement it now if he agreed to it already?
Well, I mean, they could. It's up to them. But, there's only a couple more weeks in this quarter, so it'd probably make sense to just have it announced at the beginning of the quarter and have it go for the full quarter. I mean, combined with that tax credit now, Model 3 long range, point of sale credit, FSD transfer. If you're an old Model 3 owner, this is looking like a pretty good upgrade opportunity.
Yeah. I wonder how many people that really applies to. Like people, we've already had a couple of quarters of FSD transfer. A lot of people transferred already. Like how many people actually have an old Tesla with FSD purchased? Tens of thousands, maybe? And how many of them are
I don't know. I mean, the take
wanting
rate was much
anyone?
higher back in the day when it was cheaper.
Yeah, but didn't those people already transfer or buy a new Tesla even before any of the transfer was available?
I mean, it's definitely a minority of customers. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it's your power user minority, right? Your users who spend the most and care the most about all the little tech things.
Yeah. Highland?
A question about kind of relates to Robotaxi. And there's been lots of amazing conversations on this space over the last couple of weeks talking about FSD conversion and obviously the vision for a Robotaxi in the future where there's this, giant communal fleet like Airbnb your cars goes out. And the question to, I guess, Omar or anyone who knows is there a middle ground where, it's not the full like Uber replacement service because, the fleet doesn't exist yet and the new cars aren't maybe out, that sort of thing. But FSD has reached that point where it can drive not just without your hands, not just hands free, but like you could be sitting in the back seat and be drunk kind of thing. Not that you want to be drunk, but maybe, you've had too much to drink to be allowed to drive. And I ask about this because
You sounds like you had a fun weekend.
try to make them fun weekends. If not, what are you doing, right? And we are a cannabis store, so that being legal in Canada, that's more and more of something top of mind. But I ask about this because, we talk about FSD conversion and uptake at the $100 a month, and FSD is really cool. I paid full pop for it with the car, like 12 grand Canadian, whenever 3 years ago on the X. So the transfer thing will be really nice, and I love it. But a lot of people will still see it as a nice to have and not a necessity. But if you sort of flip that over to for $100 a month, you have a personal unlimited Uber. You want to have some friends over and everyone has a few glasses of wine and then you're going to go out for dinner together, or just people pre-drinking and then going out and then get picked up after the bar. So it's sort of like the Robotaxi proposition, but it's just for your own personal use for Tesla drivers. So now it's completely different because now it's like a huge value offering of $100 a month, unlimited personal Uber rides in your own car. And you save, like, I know a lot of people that spend a lot more $100 a month on Uber. So it could massively help with FSD uptake, I think, and wouldn't require, new cars and an app and everybody adopting this new platform. And so do you think that's coming? Do you think that's coming sooner? Are they thinking about that? What do you think?
Omar?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back years, you can see examples of, for example, people driving drunk illegally. and getting in their Tesla and they turned on autopilot and fell asleep, for example. And the cops were able to pull them over, but they didn't crash and they didn't die because they had autopilot on. So, I mean, I think you've obviously seen this been building up for years, the ability to just sort of use it as a personal robotaxi. Obviously, you need to pay attention today, but we're seeing these pay attention restrictions be gradually eased over time. This week, we're going to see the update go out for hands free. So they don't have to touch the wheel. They can just get in the car, say where they want to go. And as long as they're looking at the road, it'll take them there hands free. Then I expect that they'll start actually turning off the cabin camera monitoring that makes you look at the road, starting with, for example, traffic jams, like Mercedes does, and say, okay, well, if you're in a traffic jam, if you're going lower than 40 miles an hour, then we're not going to nag you. Maybe you can, look at your phone, do whatever. And we're pretty confident that you're going to be safe and we'll beep at you if we need your attention. So gradually, I do see these restrictions going away and it becoming a personal robo taxi. Yeah, you should be able to even sit in the back or sit in the passenger seat once the software's ready. It's not today, but yeah, that's really the value proposition. For $99 a month, your car turns into your personal robo taxi, and it's really incredible how much of that functionality actually exists today in the current cars.
I think if it reaches a point where legally that's allowed, that'll be an inflection point for FSD adoption, because then you can sell it that way at the dealer, or at the, Tesla can sell it that way. You can pitch to your friends, and it just, because FSD, or I mean, went autopilot to FSD to whatever. In the beginning, it was a cool toy. Like I've had the car for 3 years, and up till about 12.3, it was like, oh, check this out, it's cool, and it was really nice on the highways. And then 12.3 has just been amazing, and I can't wait for 12.4. But all of that is still, I'm not technically allowed to do to have had a drink or a gummy or whatever. But when it
Yeah, there's
crosses
a lot
that
of work
line,
needed to make the software reliable enough that you can drink or sit in the back seat, but they're definitely getting there quick. And I think 12.4 going hands free is a big step in that direction. So in time, yeah, I think it'll be a personal robo taxi. And, I expect them to actually take pre orders at the robo taxi event for people who want to pre order one of these vehicles and use it as a personal vehicle.
do you think it'll include, like, they'll roll it out to the existing cars?
Yes.
Like that level of software? Okay. Amazing. Thanks.
Luce.
Hello, everybody. I wanted to ask when, in your opinion, we will see earning per share increasing, before or after autonomy? Thanks.
When will the earnings increase? I mean, I think before autonomy, when Cybertruck production ramps to volume production later this year, early next year, I think that's a very profitable product, especially when you consider Tesla gets paid for producing those batteries as well. So I think Cybertruck will add billions of dollars to the bottom line once it's in high volume production, and maybe a couple of quarters after that when Tesla optimizes the supply chain, the production line, and everything. So later next year, it's going to add billions of dollars to the bottom line, I think.
Do you think the battery cells will limit the ramping up, or do you think
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
what
going to be a
seems to be
problem?
the limiting factor. But then on top of that, mega packs obviously are very profitable as well. Tesla Energy margins are higher than Tesla Automotive margins. So even before you get to robotaxis, I think Tesla has multiple avenues to raise EPS. Alexander.
In the Vegas loop, why do you think they don't just activate the FSD down in the tunnels? Should be an easy fix, right?
Yeah, I think it would be easy to do, but does it really prove anything? Just from the fact that it is easy to do, like what does it really get you?
Well, I mean,
I
a
mean,
lot of the
it's
haters.
still not easy, right? You're talking about Las Vegas, people are drunk, and you got cars without a driver coming in, and people are getting in and getting to where they're going. It is something that the convention center didn't want to have become a disaster, right? And a black mark on their system that someone gotten into an accident or something, you know? I mean, it sounds simple. Oh, you're just driving through a tunnel. But having an autonomous system is always complicated. So they are definitely going to go driverless at some point. I wouldn't even be surprised if they started doing driverless tests in the boring tunnel within the year. But just because it's in a tunnel doesn't mean it's not complicated, especially when you're in Las Vegas.
Lucia, did you have a follow-up?
No, I just wanted to say that even with the mega packs, it's really a lot of work to offset all the spending in hardware, AI, etc. So it's very hard for earning for share. Obviously, they can, but it's hard. So that's why I was asking. It's hard.
Okay. Omar, did you want to add to that? Lucia's question was, is it going to take autonomy to increase EPS and lead to a stock price increase, or a couple of the things I mentioned, do you think that will be enough?
No, I think that the earnings are going to start growing before autonomy. All we need is for rates to come down. Tesla is a cash printing machine, but people have forgotten because of this environment we're in where it looks very challenging. I mean, Tesla will sell like a Cybertruck for $100,000 and people buy it and be excited about it. They will sell add-ons, they'll sell all this, merch, these batteries, we're getting 2 power walls for our house. They'll sell a lot of these things as rates come down. And in particular, as FSD improves and as it scales around the world, as we see FSD launch in Europe and as we see FSD launch in China, the FSD supervised, I believe, will actually accelerate demand for the vehicles. So I think as rates start coming down, you're also going to see the software cross such a threshold of performance where virtually every drive you do is zero intervention. And it becomes, for all intents and purposes, like a robotaxi, right? When you get into the realm where you're seeing one intervention per year, it's for all in, it takes you wherever you want. It's like having a robotaxi. And as word starts to spread about that, you are going to see an increase in orders for the vehicles too. So I don't think it's necessarily just some step function where they cross some point in performance and then, okay, now earnings are growing very fast. It's more of really something that's already started now. I mean, you're already seeing people buy more of these new and used vehicles to get FSD. And as it continues to scale around the world, I expect that to accelerate even in advance of the software being good enough to be driverless.
There you go, Lucia. Josh?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a data point on what Omar was talking about when it comes to the full self-driving transfer. I am one of those legacy Model 3 owners, 2018 performance car. I did do full self-driving on it. I love it. I've got full self-driving on my Model Y. I wanted it, but I couldn't see myself buying it for this car. Fast forward, I ordered the new car. The day it came out, 5 minutes after. Finally had a delivery window the day that Elon said that. So now I'm on hold. I went ahead and put the car that was delivered on hold, and I'm waiting. Hopefully, it sounds like I can cancel it, redo it for 15 days, and I get one more chance to get the car. But I would guess there's a lot of other people that are also in that same category of, when that's going to happen. It's the same thing with the Model Y refresh. Elon squashed that rumor real quick last week when someone mentioned, teaser shots, said no new Model Y. If people know that full self-driving transfer is coming, they're going to hold off. And if that's how, we're ending the quarter. So just a data point from my point of view.
Thanks, Josh. Luke?
I have a question about bots. How many bots do you think we need to see implemented before we get some form of civil unrest?
Omar?
I
that's a
don't
good
think
question.
there's.
I
I
think
don't think there's going to be. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Optimus's growth is going to be limited by social acceptance. I don't think the production is going to be as hard as a vehicle production ramp. And, a lot of the key parts are already there. The software capability will increase fast, even before it gets to AGI or any of that sort. I think it's going to be very useful, even if it can just like fold your clothes or make breakfast or whatever. And Elon said the next generation of hands are going to have 22 degrees of freedom. It's going to play the piano. I don't think those are going to be the limiting factors. I think it's going to be social acceptance. So I actually like that question quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll probably be some resistance, but my base expectation is that there isn't actually a lot of social unrest, that people mostly like it. They like not having to do anything that they don't want to do anymore. And I also expect these robots to be extremely, extremely charming. Not like I am robot, dot, dot, like it's going to talk to you like a human. It's going to have a personality. You're going to become endeared to it naturally, and it's going to do everything for you, everything you don't want to do. Imagine you come into your room and the bed's made, and the your everything's picked up, everything's nice and clean. You come downstairs, there's a nice hot breakfast ready for you just at the right time. you know Everything that you hate doing, this robot can do for you. Everything's faster, cheaper, better. I mean, do we hate our smartphones? Was there social unrest? I mean, people have called out some of the dangers of smartphones, social media addiction, depression, that type of stuff. But we love our phones. And I think we're gonna love our robots too. And it's really a big part of the
I
design
think, but
problem.
I agree with most of what you said. But for example, there was never a videos of people rejecting smartphones or banging on their smartphones, throwing their smartphones because they don't like, because they feel threatened. But if you look at what people are doing with cruises and Waymos, for example, that's kind of relatively new, isn't it? I think people are afraid of AI in certain ways, like it's going to take their job. And I see examples of people rejecting AI.
I mean, as someone who actually lives in San Francisco, nobody cares. The cars go around, people don't bat an eye. Obviously, when someone lights a car on fire, that gets in the news. But for the most part, nobody is lighting them on fire. They're going about their day. I think that attack on that Waymo vehicle was really in the aftermath of them hitting a cyclist. And I think they were sort of, maybe trying to say it was their fault or something. But I think the cyclist maybe kind of jumped out or something. So for the most part, they're not burning them down. I mean, I think there is always some of that, right? Like kind of going back to the Luddites and the first garment factory, and they burned it down, and they said, we can't automate clothing production or we're going to lose our jobs. But everyone went from having, one shirt to having a bunch of clothes, right? People were better off. So, there is resistance to any new technology. There are legitimately bad things that come from any new technology. But if it wasn't good, then there would be no market for it in the first place. It wouldn't be useful. And really, like I said, it's a big part of the design problem. The designers of these robots, whether it's Tesla or Apple or a Chinese company or whoever, are going to have to design them in a way to make them endearing and not threatening, right? I mean, even going back to the Optimus unveil from the very beginning, Elon talked about the height of the robot, not making it too tall, not making it be able to run too fast, because you want to be able to outrun it. You want to be able to turn it off easily. So I think really every aspect of the design, from the physical characteristics to the software, the personality that the LLM chooses to imitate, is going to be really crucial in terms of which of these products actually become successful in the marketplace.
Grant.
Yeah, I share the enthusiasm for the robot future. I'm just curious, when you're talking about the hot breakfast and everything, what's the thinking on how far out this is? This feels like, in my mind, at least a decade for a mass market person, but I'm just curious if there's been anything said by Elon.
Well, I think the 5 to 10 year time frame seems kind of realistic. We have like obviously Roombas and little robots like that today, but to really have something first of all that's mass produced and that's reliable enough that you can use it in your home is it has to not fall over, it has to not break your dishes. It has to really generalize, like we're talking about AI that we've never seen before. And this would have to run on device, right? So you're talking about a massive leap in computation as well. So the home use case, you're right, is probably at least 5, if not 10 years away. We're probably going to start seeing industrial use cases before that. Tesla's already talked about using them in the factory, but this is really kind of the ideal that it could do any task a human could do. Elon thinks we're going to have AGI next year, so I'm sure he has very optimistic timelines about the robot. But that's Elon, of course. In reality, things do take time, and there's a lot of technology we need for this type of product vision to become a reality that has never been created before.
Luke.
Yeah, I agree with bots being super well received in terms of personal assistance. But my initial thinking from the question was when it starts removing jobs on like the Walmart floor and behind doors. Because currently we're seeing mass layoffs in the tech sector, but that's not really relatable to most people because most people don't have jobs paying like $250,000 a year. So the thinking was that once you start getting rid of jobs that people can actually relate to, that's when you start seeing backlash. And I can see it becoming a major talking point in elections down the road in like 2032.
Omar.
So let me paint a picture for you. You're John, a Walmart greeter, right? Think about Idiocracy. You're at the front there. Hi, welcome to Walmart. I love you. Hi, welcome to Walmart. I love you. Really loving life, feeling really fulfilled, having to stand there all day. Now, one day a robot comes over and he says, John, today you stay home. You don't have to stand there and greet people in Walmart all day. I'm going to go do that for you as the robot. And I'm going to give you some of the money. You will still get paid. You'll still get what you need, but you don't have to do the job anymore. And on top of that, I'm going to give you a hand job whenever you want. Okay? So just ask me if you want one. Just say the word. I'll come to you. I'll give you one. Okay? You think this guy's going to be pissed off? You think he's going to come with his torch and pitchfork and say, I want to be a Walmart greeter? No, he's going to say, I want to do what I want to do. And I'm glad I have this robot to help me, at least in theory.
I kind of disagree with you because I think at
Look,
the end of the
we have other hands. We're gonna get back to you. You raise your hand if you want, but get back in line. Ziesel.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nick from Europe, and I wanted to speak about a certain topic which might interest a few analytics or chart persons.
You just ask a question. Just get your question.
Okay.
Ask a question.
What do you think about the recent increases of electric vehicle taxes on products from China, which also affects Tesla because the Model 3 for Europe is produced in Shanghai. It's about 21% which I could
Okay,
find out.
I'm gonna ask a question for you. Ziesel in the reply says, I think we should talk about long-term Model 3 sale reduction in Europe because of the new tax for Chinese-made EVs, which is minimum 21% tax rate. Omar, what do you think about these tariff increases from the EU? How do you think it's going to shape the competitive landscape going forward?
Yeah. This situation's only just getting started. I mean, the Chinese producers are, you know, they're coming in like a wrecking ball. I mean, it hasn't been that dramatic of an impact so far, but the European automakers are not competitive with the products they're able to ship there. The domestic market is saturated. There's cutthroat competition in China. Europe has higher average selling prices. It's just absolutely juicy for the Chinese producers, as is North America and South America. So you're probably going to see this sort of uneasiness about the Chinese auto uh, industry continue. So I don't see these tariffs going away. If anything, they might actually increase, and there may be retaliation by China against Europe's auto industry. So Tesla probably benefits from it more than others. Obviously, they have a German factory; they make the Model Y there. Those aren't going to be subject to the tariffs. The Model 3 will, but I think less so than some of the other manufacturers. They may want to make a Model 3 in Berlin potentially, or sell more of the models, the lower cost models that are made in Berlin. Um, it's possible they may want to import Model 3 from North America, although I bet paying the tariff from China is probably still cheaper than importing the Model 3 from North America. So, Tesla will adjust. I don't see this as a situation that's changing. The European Union believes that China is unfairly subsidizing some of their EV industry, and I think they're really going to pose a significant competitive threat to the German automakers. I mean, they already are. For example, Volkswagen was making 40 to 50% of their profits from China for many years. So if the market goes to EVs and they're buying from domestic producers rather than from the German luxury giants because they believe the Chinese domestic producers are actually better, then that's significant. So, Volkswagen's owned in part by like one of the states of Germany. There's heavy government involvement there. They've got the labor union and works councils on the board. So this situation, this protectionism is probably only going to increase around the world. But honestly, the Chinese products are so good that they're competitive even with these tariffs. So Tesla will have to adapt. They'll have to do more domestic production, and I see it probably being a good thing for them overall, making them more competitive.
Okay. Just a quick administrative announcement. I have to end the YouTube live stream for a little bit. I'll try to bring it back up, but for now, it's going to be, for the next few minutes, it's going to be on X only. And I'll try to bring back YouTube live stream, but I have to end it right now. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Owen, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. Just to roll back to what Grant was saying, I think he has an excellent point. I think Yamam and Omar do such a brilliant job about dissecting what's going on within the Tesla world and explaining it to the people. But the disruption that's going to come from the universal labor displacement is massive, and we should really talk about it in these spaces, because the example of John in Walmart is great, but the amount of GDP growth required for a universal income for John to be able to feed his family is
that's all we could do. That's all we could do was just find food. So everybody was, finding food. And then we started farming. We started doing agriculture. And we said, oh my God, this is way more efficient than killing it. Over time, we had this massive industrial economy that's developed where a very small number of people are focused on subsistence and more people are able to do other things.
Yeah.
And
sorry, just one more admission. The YouTube live is back on. YouTube live is back on. Omar, go ahead.
Yeah, and you've seen this sort of fear many times. Again, like going back to the Luddites when they had that automated textile factory and they burned it down and they said this thing is going to take our jobs. But we always figure out something new to do, right? It's not like, I mean, today's AI is still very stupid. In the medium term, these systems are going to be working alongside humans and increasing their productivity. So, of course, it has to be carefully managed. You want to set policy well. You want to make sure that there's a way for people to transition from one career to the other. Um, there are a lot of things you want to be careful of. It's definitely not something to be taken lightly. But I don't see it as sort of a unique event, but rather a continuation of centuries of automation that have been very beneficial to humanity.
JFM, go ahead.
Hey, a little bit of a non sequitur to the current topic, but I kind of want to understand whether or not Tesla is considering entering into other markets that are pertinent to their technology. My specific question sort of relates to the boating market. This is a $60 billion annual market in the United States. And I believe the technology that Tesla has could be incredibly disruptive to sort of the status quo. Boats sit on lakes all day in the sun. They
Listen, that's not what you said in the replies. Can you ask the question in the replies?
What?
Can you ask the question that you put in the replies?
Okay. So I had a question pertinent to the earlier discussion about self-driving vehicles, and I was wondering about the threshold for overcoming other drivers on the road. So how do you get beyond the unpredictable variable of other human-driven vehicles with respect to sort of liability and accident causing? Because at some point the technology is going to overcome, the car itself, and then you're dealing with bad drivers on the road creating sort of unpredictable situations.
Well, the goal is really to never be in an accident or never be at fault in an accident. Obviously, there are some situations where someone just runs into you from behind or the side and you can't really do much to evade it. The self-driving car would try and evade any crash if it was possible to. But yeah, there will be probably some at-fault accidents, but the goal is that the self-driving vehicle is never at fault for the accident. It should be, more situations that it just couldn't avoid. And there's obviously, still today a lot of accidents that happen even in Waymo and other services, hitting people, hitting other cars. Mostly, if you look at some of the accident reports at the California DMV, mostly people hitting the Waymos from behind and stuff like that, and situations where the Waymo isn't at fault. But there are still some where, the Waymo hit a cyclist or hit a person or something like that. So ideally, you just want it to be driven down to zero for the things you control. If someone hits you, obviously, there's not always a lot you can do about that.
Alexander.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate on what I said. What I think we should look out for when it comes to Optimus is when they show Optimus picking up parts scrambled in a pallet. That's when we can see. That's when they are gonna earn money on the bot, I think. and start selling it.
Mike. Mike, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. I have a question regarding using customers' Teslas
Dude,
in your
look, this is getting ridiculous. So just to kind
Excuse
of
me?
go over the rules again. I'm gonna move some people down. The rules are very simple. Like literally, all you gotta do is when you come up to speak, don't ask if we can hear you. Start with a question word and ask your question in 10 words. It's very simple. There's nothing too complicated about it. And this rule applies to everybody. All right. Well, I have a question for you. Why is Elon talking about, why even talk about hardware 5? It only hurts sales of hardware 4 cars, isn't it?
I mean, 18 months away, who cares? That's like forever. I mean, they're still supporting, like, even people who have the hardware 4 cars, they haven't even started tapping into the power of hardware 4 yet. They're still running the hardware 3 model. So I think people should just catch on that it actually doesn't matter what hardware you have. The hardware 3 and hardware 4 cars perform exactly the same today. And even after hardware 5 comes out in 18 months, it's probably going to be at least 6 months to a year before they start tapping into the power of that. So you're really talking about like 2.5 years. If you buy a car now, by the time hardware 5 actually even matters, you're going to be ready to buy another car anyway. Your 3-year lease is going to be over. So, you know, I don't even care about these things anymore. I realized that, wanting to upgrade to hardware 4 really quickly, there was literally no point. Hardware 4 doesn't do anything yet. It's future proof, right? It has extra capacity for the future, but today it doesn't really matter.
But like,
So,
what's the point of talking about hardware 5 at all? Like, what benefit is there to talk about hardware 5?
I mean, it's pretty incredible what their in-house silicon team is doing. And they're actually using these chips, even the FSD computer chips, the inference computers that go in the car, they're putting up about 20,000 of them in Giga Texas to help with the training workflow. So they actually do the forward pass on the same hardware that runs in the car. And then they do back propagation on the NVIDIA system. So these things are even useful in training. And if it's faster, that means you can actually train faster, right? Like, I mean, the 3 to 4 times improvement that we saw from hardware 3 to hardware 4 was already impressive. The fact that the next generation is going to be even 10 times better than hardware 4 is pretty crazy. And that's obviously, like a lot of what Elon's now saying about the inference computer is starting to make sense. He goes, oh, well, the inference computer is really a huge part of this. If you look at the combined inference compute on the cars, it's going to be so huge. And it makes sense when you look at all this power that they're adding, both on the data center side and across the cars. It really is going to be like a massive amount of compute. I mean, 10 times more powerful than hardware 4. We, haven't seen anything like that in a car ever, obviously.
Brandon.
Yeah, I think he said the hardware 5 or AI 5 is going to be B100 equivalents or something like that. Do you think that's what they're going to use in their 20,000 like GPU stack or whatever you want to call it in Giga Texas, or do you think it's going to be like the hardware 4? And what do they do when they have to upgrade? Like, what do you do with that many like old chips?
It's going to be hardware 4 at the new Giga Texas facility that's going up right now. Hardware 5 isn't ready, so they wouldn't be using that. And what they're actually doing is the Palo Alto facility with all the hardware 3 computers is going to stay focused on training the hardware 3 model. And the new facility at Giga Texas is actually going to train a hardware 4 specific model. And That's going to be out to customers later this year. So that's the crazy thing. If you have a hardware 4 car, they haven't even tapped into its power yet. And once that new facility in Giga Texas is done, and they actually train a model there on those 50,000 NVIDIA H100s they're putting up, then we're going to get to see what hardware 4 is really capable of. So I would expect a significant jump in miles per intervention when that happens, but maybe not, but you would expect that probably training the model on a higher resolution image using those additional details in the hardware 4 camera plus the additional processing power, you'd hope that that would make it drive better.
Brandon?
So would that mean kind of like what they're doing now by keeping the hardware 3 clusters around when they're ready for hardware 5? Will they have to build an entirely new like facility and keep the hardware 4?
I mean, I
or do
would
they
probably just keep it up, right? Like the cars are still out there. You still need to train and test on these different hardware generations. So probably just keep them up as long as you're supporting them. But if you need to take them down and put newer ones, you can do that too. It's not really rocket science. It's just like a computer on a shelf.
Waymo announced 3 hours ago. Today, fifth generation Waymo driver provides more than 50,000 trips to paying riders weekly. To bring the benefits of our life-saving technology to even more people, please meet our sixth generation Waymo driver as it begins sensor testing and validation. Omar, what else do we know about Waymo's sixth generation driver?
Yeah, this is really exciting, honestly, the sixth generation vehicle. The fifth generation vehicle was a Jaguar I-Pace. I believe Jaguar may have stopped making them. Like, I think Jaguar is going bankrupt or something. So that's not really a good situation. I mean, this is kind of the pitfall of using outside vehicles for your platform is, the vehicle manufacturer could disappear or something. So I guess despite selling all those cars to Waymo, nobody wanted a Jaguar I-Pace. The new sixth generation vehicle is really exciting for a number of reasons. It's a completely different form factor. It's actually made by Zeekr, which is a division of Geely, the Chinese auto giant. So Zeekr makes this new vehicle. It is unfortunately going to be impacted by the new tariff on Chinese EVs. So this was supposed to be a huge, huge cost saving for Waymo to go from the old generation system to this new sixth generation Waymo driver. Now, unfortunately, because of the 100% tariff, it's going to be double the cost of what it would have been. So that's kind of unfortunate. It's possible maybe Waymo could get a tariff exemption, but not really. I imagine, they'll try and maybe source maybe more domestically in the future. Maybe they'll have some plan. They kind of got caught off guard by that. But, honestly, it's probably still going to be a cost reduction, even with the 100% tariff compared to the Jaguar I-Pace, which I think retailed over 70,000 or something like that, just for the vehicle, let alone the remanufacturing they had to do. So the really exciting part about this sixth generation vehicle is they removed the steering wheel and they removed the pedals. So I don't know if they have an exemption from NHTSA or if it's going to be legal to run these on the road, but it doesn't make sense for the Waymo vehicles to have steering wheels and pedals. If you pull on the steering wheel or push on the pedal because it is still physically linked to the vehicle, a drunk passenger or something could cause an accident or something like that just by grabbing the wheel. So it makes a lot of sense to just remove the controls and just have it operate as a pure driverless vehicle. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm excited to sit in it for the first time to experience like a pure robo taxi, not a vehicle retrofitted, but a vehicle actually designed to be driverless and you can sit and all the room is just for the passengers. So hopefully they can get those out there soon and let people try them, but I'm not really sure what the legality of it is. I imagine they're working on getting sort of regulatory approval to run it, but yeah, these things are going to be something that we've never seen before, a vehicle without controls on the road.
Yeah, Waymo also says Waymo's 6th generation driver will build on the unparalleled capabilities of their current generation hardware with a simplified and cost-effective design that can autonomously navigate colder cities and help us further scale. Interesting. Luke?
With robotaxis allowing revenue share to us buyers, do you think they'll set a limit to how many Teslas we can own?
No.
Thomas?
How do you suppose they're going to overcome the same issue with the customer-owned Teslas? The same issue that Omar mentioned with respect to the riders touching a wheel or interfering with the controls?
Steer by wire and removing the controls.
Right. Eventually, absolutely right. Steer by wire is the only way really to proceed, in my view, for other reasons too. But for the existing fleet, let's say I have a Model 3 also, and I'm interested in enrolling that in a Tesla robotaxi program. But that's one kind of a question that I have, how they will handle that and what.
Right. Yeah. So, one thing you could do is just take the steering wheel and pedals off. If you wanted to keep them on, like physically remove them, if you wanted to keep them on because you like manually driving or something like that, then there's certain software protections that they've implemented in the Waymo. Like, for example, if I start turning the wheel in a Waymo while it's working, it'll essentially just slam on the brakes and it'll stop. And it won't move as long as I'm touching the controls. And if I continue interfering with it, the rider support's going to call me and they're probably going to kick me out of the vehicle. So, just simply by telling the user, there's like a sticker on it and it says, don't touch it, it'll actually move the car and you could cause an accident. So most people just obey the sticker, right? 99% of people, they're not going to touch it if you say don't touch it. But in the rare cases where they do, you just sort of stop the car. You try and let them out if you need to, if they're really being disruptive. And that's just kind of something that you have to deal with as a workaround until you have a steer-by-wire car. With a steer-by-wire car, you can just turn the wheel off. And then even if they move it, it doesn't necessarily need to move the car.
All right. This space is available free and open to everybody who want to listen because of my patrons. Patron link is at the top of your screens. If you'd like to support the space, please sign up for Patreon. On that note, we have one of our favorite speakers on the board right now. Omar is doing a great job. And now we have our least favorite speaker, Machine. Welcome.
I'm not an expert in Latin, but I believe Patreon and Patron are related to Padre or Father, which I'm your daddy.
Okay.
That's how
You're
it's
not
related.
a patron, are you?
No, just making a joke.
Okay.
God, I'm not paying you. Okay, I already pay your mom.
It's not that funny. You need to work on it. I know you have to warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you want to bring other speakers while you warm up?
I just.
Hey, what do you think about this? Peter Rawlinson's comments: 5 miles per kilowatt hour. He says nobody's even close. We are the leader in core technology.
I haven't seen his comments, but I think they already said that like a year or two ago about getting to that 5 kilowatt hours per mile. But I thought there was some analysis of their vehicle in terms of it's very long and relatively narrow versus the length, and so the relative drag effect is lower. I don't know. So yeah, could they be more efficient than Tesla? Sure, I guess. But you know what? They're much less efficient in the production of their vehicles. So I think you probably want to focus on that first versus really being obsessed over your maybe a little bit better efficiency.
Yeah.
So
someone in the replies actually said, even though they may be more efficient per kilowatt hour, the technology costs so much that they can't produce the cars profitably. So what use is it? I think that's probably the best response to that.
Exactly. It's very dumb to just focus on that. It's like missing the forest through the trees for
a company in not a good financial position, especially.
Then why do you say that response?
Because he's British and he's smug. He can't help himself.
No, why didn't you say that response instead of blabbering about something else?
I did. I said, I'm like, they're
That's by
inefficient
far
overall.
the best response to what Rollins has said.
Well, if you start supporting my Patreon, then I might be able to take the time to come up with better comments.
Whatever. What do you think about Optimus's next generation hands, 22 degrees of freedom? That's pretty impressive, right?
Sure. Yeah. Would be more concerned about its sensitivity of sensing pressure and force at the fingertips. That's probably the most important aspect, in my opinion, for it to be really useful in highly dexterous situations. So, having more degrees of freedom is generally good if you're able to control it, but you need to have the proper sensing for that to really work.
Yoda.
I miss Merit coffee.
Did you like it? Did you ask for Yaman's cup?
No, I didn't. I asked for my regular, which is cappuccino extra hot. Just wanted to get that cup as I'm winning these bets on your Tesla Live Spaces.
Machine Yoda is convinced that 8.8 is going to start a robotaxi service with driverless. And while we have both of you and also Omar on the board, maybe we can talk about the testing that's starting in China. Machine, does that change your timeline for robotaxis at all?
No, because the reliability sucks still. So it's a joke.
Yeah. Yoda, what do you think?
Well, I think we all agreed to disagree on this, which is fair because I mean, I'm certainly speculating, but I think it would be awkward if on 8.8 they're unveiling the vehicle, the robotaxi, the vehicle, the hardware, and not talk about the service. If there are, let's say, a dozen or so cars operating in 2 cities in China, that would be kind of awkward. So, but again, just speculating here.
Machine, Yoda makes a good comment, but there's also a better comment in the replies. Luke says there's a missed opportunity to make your mama joke, 22 degrees of freedom with your hand comments.
Well, listen, Luke, if he's so good in real time, why don't you come up to the space and make the joke in real time?
Well, I actually just kicked him down for this little stuff. He was actually up here.
I mean, I'm personally not impressed with the robot, as Machine's mom has at least 40 degrees of freedom in her hands. I would know.
That was good
from last night.
This is why Omar is on the space, because he's good in real time. I just want to say I disagree with Tesla Yoda. Because what's more embarrassing or awkward than revealing a robotaxi at work and not having a vehicle ready. What's more embarrassing is having robotaxis that kill people. I think they want to avoid that. And when you're at a few hundred miles per critical disengagement and you start putting these on the real world, you're going to hit people, and that's not good. And so this is not FUD. I'm not fear mongering here. It's just practicality of statistics. So this is why, Musk has set it up now that the future of this company is heavily valued on robotaxi. And this is why he's now tweeting a lot about, how miles per intervention are going to, go up significantly, giving out some numbers. But then he's also
5x to 10x, 5x to 10x.
Yeah.
And you actually bet me that will happen.
No, I bet you a specific metric, which was what percent of drives will be without a critical disengagement by end of September.
I mean, they're kind of similar.
They're
kind of
related,
similar.
but
you still think that's going to happen though, with 12.4 rollouts going so slow?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, my whole thing was caveat was that I was expecting this to be on 12.5, right? It's not going to happen with 12.4, I don't think. But I mean, it's possible. But I was betting 12.5 through September, right? So there's still a chance we have 12.5 for September. But I'm just going to say that I lost my train of thought.
Man, you're
So
off your game today, Yoda.
now
Finish him.
machine dates aside and degrees of freedoms aside, how do you think FSD and robotaxi service will roll out in China? What do you think those milestones are? How does it all unfold?
Well, honestly, I'm not sure if they're going to just go straight to unsupervised or if they're going to start a service with, drivers in the car and then just gradually, they're running the FSD. Maybe they literally have FSD running, but have a safety driver in there. And then eventually it gets to a high enough reliability that they just pop them out. I think that's more reasonable. I just don't see them going to fully unsupervised because they're so far away. It's not just critical disengagements. It's the engineering effort to have the whole system set up to perform all the tasks. They're not feature complete.
Machine, what do you think about Model 3 long range not qualifying for the $7,500 tax credits?
Obviously, I think that's a big deal, assuming that that's happening with volume, which I think it is. So, I mean, that's a huge deal. That's the biggest news that's come out positive for Tesla in regards to supporting earnings coming back up at some point here. So that's much more significant than FSD take rate. $7,500. There's skewing of the market. They didn't sell as many vehicles because they had quote production issues with the Model 3, but partly related to the fact that you're not going to have that many people paying for a Model 3 for much more money than they would a Model Y. This really helps. I mean, the short range you still have the issue with, but now if you can have the long range and performance, I don't know, maybe at these prices, can you sell mostly long range and performance? I don't in the US. I'm not sure if you can, but it's going to go a considerably long way.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen to Model 3 sales after this because in the last year, I think we've all been surprised to the downside how little tax credits have impacted sales. All right. Omar, is there anything else we're going to talk about?
Well, I just had a couple of comments about the recent discussion. So first off, on Yoda's robotaxi service, there's no robotaxi service. I think it's interesting how people just always find a way to disappoint themselves. Like Elon can bring out a unicorn that poops out a brick of gold, and people go, well, I read on X that the unicorn was supposed to talk. So just enjoy what it is. It's a vehicle reveal. There's no launch of a robotaxi service. I think that should be obvious to everybody. Then, the 50,000 paid rides a week that Waymo is touting here. I just want to emphasize that's 2.6 million driverless rides a year. So when you hear people saying, well, robotaxis, when are they going to happen? There are millions of robotaxi rides without a driver happening around the world. The future's here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. So no matter what you're invested in, every single investor should be watching this very closely because it's going to change a lot of things. And then the final comment that I had was about Optimus. And Elon made an interesting comment on X this weekend. And he said that we're actually going to start out by only renting it out. So we had heard that the cost was going to be around $10,000 for a Target. He said we're probably going to retail it for around 20,000 after that. So, $20,000 retail price, that's a little bit challenging, I think, for most people, for non-industrial use cases. But, obviously a rental model that has actually the power to be much more disruptive because then you don't have the upfront cost of capital. You're just sort of paying it hourly like a human and having it do whatever task. So I think that little tidbit he gave about what they're planning on the business model is really interesting there. And kind of shed some light on their thinking with how they do the go to market if this is a product with a $10,000 bill of materials that would retail for $20,000 or more. And it also really helps them, I think, capture the value of the bot as opposed to a sort of flat priced model where most of the value the bot created would be captured by the owner.
All right. Yoda?
Omar, what do you think the hourly rate will be for Optimus? Um, Maybe comparing that with like the minimum wage or maybe the cost of electricity. Just wondering what your thoughts are, and then how would the bots be be getting to the different households? Are they going to be riding robo taxis, or are they going to be kind of stationed within the house?
Yeah, I mean, they'll ride a robo taxi like anybody else, sure. And, I imagine you could hire a PhD for $10 an hour. And you say, hey, I want to remodel my kitchen. And it can say, oh, I have a doctoral dissertation on architecture. I've studied all of human knowledge and I can help you with this problem, right? So for $10 an hour, you're going to get someone that's smarter than most humans. That's really the value proposition of really the vision for it. And you can see this kind of with LLMs, right? They have so much background knowledge. So, I think human labor is like what? Minimum wage, I think, is $7 at the federal level. Most, urban areas, the minimum wage is like $15 at least. So I think probably like $10 to $15 an hour, you start to become cheaper than a human.
Yeah, I think that's actually quite interesting. And Omar, I think we maybe agree on this point, but if you can clarify for the audience, why do LLM subscriptions such as ChatGPT and those from Google's at say $20, why does that get competed away to potentially approaching zero? Whereas for let's say FSD, it does not get competed away. Is it the proprietary data? Is it the device that it runs on, i.e., the cars that's proprietary? If you can maybe shed some light on the dynamics there.
Well, you probably would expect that the technology would be commoditized over a decade or more. But it's really a matter of who just actually has the best self-driving service, who has the model that can drive the best because it's learned from millions of cars, who actually has millions of cars on the road, who actually has the chargers, the service centers, the factories needed to make all of this stuff happen. So it's, really a business like any other business. Think about the Tesla network like this enormous jobs board, right? So you're going to have billions of robots, okay? More robots than people. And every robot is going to go get jobs. So, for example, a job might be, hey, pick up this person and take them here. A job might be, pick up this sandwich and take it here. It might be, pick up these robots and take them to where they have to go do a job. They have to go fix somebody's plumbing or do some gardening or whatever. So, there's going to be all these jobs that the robot has to do. And Tesla is going to take 30 to 50% of the revenue in exchange for building the software that does the job and maintaining it and updating it over time. So, you know, it kind of sounds like the federal government's business model. And
We have some news. I pinned at the top of our screens. Elon says working on Tesla Master Plan 4. It will be epic. So that Elon's tweet. Thank you everybody for replying with Elon's tweet. Working on Tesla Master Plan 4. It will be epic. Interesting.
yeah, it is an interesting tweet. I mean, Master Plan Part 3. What exactly was that again? It wasn't
I mean,
really as
I'm
catchy
thinking
and memorable
Master
as 1 and
Master
2.
Plan, yeah. Master Plan 2 had robotaxis, and that's not done yet. So I wonder what's going to be Master Plan 4. I guess we'll find out. Yoda?
Yeah, I think Master Plan 4 will likely be the new book that he was talking about around Optimus and the economy. Whereas maybe Master Plan 3 just slightly kind of touch on that part, but was still focus on energy and
I think
EV and
Master
autonomy.
Plan 3 was more about energy and also additional vehicles. The vehicles under the covers.
3 was about scaling or something like that.
Yeah, it's about
Insane
scaling
scale.
battery, switched electric vehicles, switched to heat pumps, planes, boats.
Yeah, it seems like the cost of renting Optimus will be the cost of transport via the robotaxi, then the cost of the tokens, whereby you're using its intelligence, and then some sort of cost around electricity to kind of to charge or recharge while it's working, and then the cost of maintenance if there's any kind of slight kind of similar to Airbnb kind of cleaning fees or any kind of maintenance fees marginal related to when you used the bot. Those seems to be the cost components that goes into the rent.
Yeah. All right. Omar, is there anything else we're going to talk about? Maybe we can discuss Tesla Master Plan 4 on tomorrow in Tesla Live and speculate on what might be in there. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot around Optimus.
Yeah.
And what Optimus is going to do. What do you think? Do you want to give a bit of a preview for tomorrow's space?
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the most recent annual meeting, and Elon said, we're not starting a new chapter, we're starting a new book. And that he thought that, okay, maybe FSD and robotaxis could be worth 5 trillion, but he thought that Optimus could be worth, 5 times more than that. So I think really looking at the future of the company, he sees Optimus as really providing the vast majority of the future earnings. But if you really look at the company's master plans, which have always been the guiding star of the company, right? The master plan explains really what the vision of the company is. But Optimus hasn't fit into that plan at all, right? It's kind of just been off to the side. And Elon's sometimes been asked about, well, how does this fit in with the goal to transition to sustainable energy? And he hasn't quite been able to answer that. So I would expect that the plan 4 is probably AI and robotics focused, and that it probably fits Optimus and what they're doing now with AI into the broader mission of the company.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And we will continue tomorrow. After party in 15 minutes. Take care.